All right, in this lesson, we'll take a look at a bunch of different ways that we can concatenate strings together. Remember that the process of concatenation is basically adding two strings together, adding one to the end of another. Let's say I create two variables here, first name, and I'll set it equal to Harry, and last name, and I'll set it equal to Potter. Let's say I want to combine these. Well, I can begin with the simplest way to concatenate, probably the one you're most familiar with, which is the plus sign. If I take two strings, for example, first name is a variable storing a string, and I add a last name. So again, I'm just taking two strings here. They're each represented by a different variable. When you do a plus sign with two different strings, it's simply going to add them together. And in this case, you'll notice we don't have a space at the end of Harry, so we're literally just going to get the two of them clumped together like so. Harry, no space, Potter. If I wanted to add that space in between, I can either add it at the end of Harry here or at the beginning of Potter. I'm going to add it here at the end of Harry, and now we have those two strings concatenated together. In addition to the simple plus sign, you can also use that plus equal sign that we explored in the numbers unit, which both adds something and then overwrites the original variable. So you may remember in the last unit we did something like this. We can concatenate to first name by doing first name equals first name plus last name. What happens on the right side of the equal sign always takes place first. So this would take Harry, and then it would take Potter, it would concatenate the two of them and write it to a variable first name. So if I take a look at first name here, we can see at the end of the script it's equal to Harry Potter. And the shorthand syntax for this is exactly the same as it is with numbers. If I do first name plus equals last name, what it's going to do is take the current value of first name, concatenate the value of last name, and then overwrite the value of first name. So this is going to give us the exact same result. This is a shorthand syntax for the code that we just saw earlier. In addition to the plus operator, there's also a convenient concat method. It's basically short for concatenate. We call it directly on one string, and we pass it an argument, and that argument represents the string that we want to concatenate. So instead of this syntax, what I can do is first underscore name, dot concat. Remember, the dot symbol is always used to call a method. My method name here is concat. It is available on string objects. Let's open my parentheses here, even though they're optional. And my argument here is going to be what I want to concatenate to the end. It's going to be the string in the last name variable. If I output this, we're going to get the exact same result. If I wanted to overwrite the value this time, what I can do is reassign to first name. That is, overwrite an existing variable. I can, of course, write this to a brand new variable like full name. But in this case, if I wanted to overwrite the current value in first name, you can see this result is going to do the exact same thing as we just saw. There's a few more tips and tricks available for adding strings together. We also have a convenient operator called the shovel operator. So if I take a look at first name, and the shovel operator is this syntax. It's two less than signs right after each other. So if I do that with last name, what's going to happen is the exact same result. We'll see first name and then the last name variable concatenated to the end of it. And just like with plus signs, this is not necessarily limited just to two strings. You can combine as many as you want. So if I do something like this, another combination of the shovel operator, let's add another string at the end. Let's call it wizard. We can see here we're going to get Harry Potter wizard. This is the same thing as doing first name plus last name plus wizard. All right, same result. We can see the exact same output on the right side right here. Okay, lots of different ways we can accomplish the same thing. Ruby is a very flexible language. Probably the plus sign is going to be the most common one you see, but I just wanted to introduce you to a couple options. By the way, going back to the concat method that we explored a little bit earlier, I do want to iterate that that method permanently modifies the original string. So if we did something like first name dot concat last name, and I take a look at first name after the operation, concat does permanently overwrite the original string. So first name is now going to be equal to Harry Potter. It does overwrite it. Okay, now it's not a bang method. We may not have explored bang methods yet, but those are methods that overwrite an existing variable after an operation, and they usually include a exclamation point at the end. Concat does not, but it is one of those methods that does overwrite. So first name at the beginning of this operation was Harry. When we called concat, it concatenated Potter at the end and then overwrote the value that the variable first name was storing. So first name at the end here is going to give us Harry Potter, okay? That's the total value of the variable. In addition to the concat method, we have a prepend method. That's the last method I want to introduce in this lesson. And the prepend method does the opposite of concat. It takes the argument that you give to the method and it adds it in front of the string that the method is being called on. So if I did first name prepend last name, what it's going to do is take the string that's now in my last name variable, put it in front of the string that's in my first name variable, and give that as the final result. So you can see here, well, it's not going to print anything, but if I output this, let me just add a space here, we're going to get Potter Harry. In fact, that space at the end goes to waste. Let me add a space right here at the end of Potter and remove it here. There we can see we're going to get Potter Harry now because we called the prepend method on first name. So this is the exact same thing, by the way, as doing last name dot concat first name. It's just a different way. Depends on how you want to look at the problem and whether you want to move things to the end or to the beginning. And this also does overwrite the existing variable. So now if I take a look at first name, you can see if I output it, in fact, let me get rid of this P, you can see that the first name variable now stores the string Potter Harry, okay? And if I did it in a different way, it would be storing in a different variable. So for example, or a different result. So for example, if I got rid of this code and I did last name dot concat first name, it's the same operation, but now that operation is going to overwrite my last name variable rather than my first name variable. So last name in this case is going to be equal to Potter Harry, while in the example that I just commented, the first name variable is going to be equal to Potter Harry. So it really depends on what variables you want to modify and kind of the order in which you want to concatenate. This is a lot to take in, but there's a lot of different ways, as this lesson shows, that we can combine two strings together by concatenating them. We can use the plus operator. If we combine the plus operator with the equal sign, we can overwrite the value in our original variable. We can use the concat method. That, of course, overwrites the variable that it's called on or the string that it's called on. We can use what's called the shovel operator, which is the two less than signs. We can combine that as we can with many of these other different ways of concatenation. And finally, we concluded with the prepend method, which is called on one string, which is the receiver, and it prepends, which means adds before whatever argument you pass to that prepend method. So quite a lot of different things to practice here, and I will see you in the next lesson.